So this summer, as we're celebrating our nation's 250th birthday, I have been digging into a little bit of our colonial history and into some of the preachers and their sermons and mostly the scripture passages that ended up helping shape and form us as a country. And today we get at a little piece of scripture that has endured in political discourse in this country for 350 years or so. And to get at the heart of the scripture and the sermon that it came with, we have to go onto a boat in the mid-Atlantic in the year 1630. The boat is not the Mayflower. The Mayflower would have come in 1620 with the Pilgrims. This is the Arbella, which came in 1630 with the Puritans. Now, just to sort it out, because a lot of people get this confused, the Puritans and the Pilgrims were not the same people. The Pilgrims came first, 1620. They settled in Cape Cod. The Puritans came in 1630, and they decidedly did not settle in Cape Cod. They didn't agree with each other. Divisions are not new. So they went up to what is now Boston. So the Puritans are on this boat, about 150 of them on this ship, tossed in the sea. And they are on a holy mission in the wilderness of the New World. They hope to form a new and holy society. And their leader, the preacher on this occasion, although he's not a minister, is the lawyer and politician, John Winthrop. And as he gives this sermon, speech, pep talk to his fellow Puritans, he turns to a passage that is familiar to many of us. It is a few verses of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount from Matthew chapter 5. Starting at verse 14, and we will go to verse 16. You are a light of the world. A city built upon a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket. That's where we get the song. This little, don't hide it under a bushel, no. But on a lampstand, and it gives light to all the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and the glory of your Father in heaven. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hid. Before we dive into this, just a couple notes about the sermon. John Winthrop was not a preacher, and it shows. The sermon was only 2 pages long. If you remember back a few weeks, we're at John Knox's sermon was like 40 pages long. Like, if you went and John Winthrop was preaching, you would think you didn't get your offering worth. It also isn't much of a sermon. It's a few paragraphs, a few short paragraphs on how this group of people who are going to the New World needed to live together so that God would bless them in this endeavor. And the short version of the sermon is, leave your individuality behind and do everything I say. That was basically what Winthrop was saying. he also says to them, as we are making this holy experiment in the wilderness, everybody will be watching us. We shall be as a city on a hill, visible to the whole world, showing them that our experiment works, that our beliefs, our understandings, how we live life together is superior to the cesspool of sin and iniquity that was England at the time. We shall be as a city on the hill. And with those words, Winthrop's sermon becomes one of the most quoted in political discourse, especially 20th century political discourse, of any sermon ever. This thing has legs. And those of you who remember the 80s and remember Ronald Reagan, this was Ronald Reagan's favorite political vision and analogy. He used it, according to Wikipedia, I did not count, in something like 30 speeches while he was president. But he wasn't alone. John F. Kennedy gave a speech on the floor of the legislature of Massachusetts using the same verse, same analogy. Clinton's campaign, running against the legacy of Ronald Reagan, used the same analogy. Reagan promised you a city on the hill. I'm going to give you a city on the hill. And even Obama gets into it, quoting Reagan as a way to troll Trump. So this image of America as a city on a hill from John Winthrop's sermon just lives on and lives on. We'll let Reagan flesh it out. Reagan said this in his farewell speech at the end of his presidency. In my mind, the city on the hill was a tall, proud city built on rocks, stronger than oceans, windswept, God-blessed, teeming with people of all kinds living in harmony and peace. A city with free ports that hummed with commerce and creativity. And if there had to be city walls, the walls had doors and the doors were open to anyone with the will and the heart to get here. Reagan's vision actually pushes us into Revelation. This is, with a little economic development added in, the vision of the end of Revelation, the great New Jerusalem that comes down, this city on a hill where light streams from it, and the gates are always open, and people flow in. So, this brings us to some questions. Is America such a place? Should America be such a place? Has America ever been such a place? Does America as a country have divine purpose at all? Don't worry, I'm not going to answer any of those questions. I'm going to let them hanging. But certainly Boston in the 1630s, the literal city, collection of a few houses, on a hill was never such a place. We're going to talk more about that next week when we go a little bit more into the Puritans, but they were never such a place. And they didn't want to be such a place. Reagan's vision would have driven John Winthrop absolutely crazy. But let's get back to the scripture. You are the light of the world, Jesus tells his disciples. Why? Where does this light come from? Jesus is the light of the world. And the disciples are to bask in Jesus' light. They absorb that light, and then Christ's light flows out through them. So they become the light of the world, reflecting Jesus' light to their neighbors. And their neighbors can see the light that shines forth from them. And what will they see? Well, we're right at the end of that set of blessings, the Sermon on the Mount. This comes right after that. Jesus has already said, blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, blessed are the hungry. How will that light be apparent? Well, the poor will be blessed. Those who mourn will be comforted. The meek, the merciful, the pure in heart, those who make peace will be upheld in society. And yes, there'll be struggle and persecution, and blessed are those who are persecuted. You are, Jesus tells his disciples, to be such a blessing in your community that my light will flow through you, and you will be as a city on a hill, because everybody will be able to see you and they will be watching. Does your light shine toward others? Now, the Puritans, to give them credit, were among the persecuted. In England, they were heavily persecuted as a group. In fact, the term Puritan was itself a slander. They did not call themselves Puritans. They called themselves God's chosen, or the blessed, or the saints, as opposed to everyone else. They strove to separate themselves spiritually, physically, by crossing an ocean from all the other Christians in England who had no need for what the Puritans brought, which was a very intense spirituality, stripped of everything that made church and life fun. No saints, no celebrations. The Puritans didn't celebrate Christmas or Easter or anything like that. No artwork. No music except a cappella song singing. Really, pretty much anything fun. You were to be pure and focused only on God. The Puritans rooted themselves in the Exodus story. They were the persecuted slaves in Egypt. England in this story was Egypt. They then went through the wilderness, being the Atlantic Ocean, to get to the promised land, which was New England. And John Winthrop, depending on how you want to interpret this, was either Moses or Joshua. And life would be hard in this promised land. The challenges would be physical. They would be spiritual. And if they were to survive or thrive in this new land, they had to live as God intended. And Scripture would be their guide. Or more importantly, John Winthrop's view of Scripture would be their guide. Again, something we'll get into next week. The individuals would have to submit to the biblical authority of their leaders. This 150 or so seasick people on the ship in the North Atlantic had to commit to laying aside their differences, to pooling their labor and their money, to observe all the rules of the colony, and most of all, do not complain. They would be together as this city on the hill. And the world would be watching. I do want to do a little footnote here. The world did not care what was going on in New England in 1630. Neither did their fellow Puritans in England who didn't come along. They went to a backwater and they stayed in a backwater. But anyway, the world would be watching. Could they, this group of 130 on this ship, build the New Jerusalem? Could they remain pure and holy, receiving the blessing of the Lord? Or would the Lord leave them to the very real perils of sickness, disease, starvation, attacks from the people who already lived there? This was high stakes. Would God bless them, or would God leave them to die? So the Israelites journey from Egypt across the desert. They enter the promised land, and they never manage to become the people that God calls them to be. That's the overarching story of the New Testament. Such calling, such promise, never achieving. Jerusalem, built by David, built by Solomon, never becomes a great city on a hill of light to the nations. Its leaders worshiped other gods, neglect the poor, abuse the widow, make unwise political alliances, and they lack personal integrity. As the Babylonian armies closes in, God says, I'll see you later. He leaves the city, leaves them to their just deserts, the fate they have earned. Jerusalem is destroyed. Israel is scattered. Yet, the prophets, those God calls in this hard time to continue delivering the word of the Lord, they never lose hope. Isaiah especially. Isaiah tells the Israelites, arise and shine, for your light has come. We read this every Christmas season. The glory of the Lord has risen upon you. Darkness shall cover the earth, but the Lord will arise upon you. Glory will appear over you. You shall be a people of peace, defined by righteousness. The oppressed shall receive good news. Here, we're back to Jesus, but this is Isaiah. I'm not jumping forward back to the Gospels. This is what Isaiah is promising. The poor, the oppressed shall receive good news. The brokenhearted healed. The captives freed. Those in mourning shall be comforted. Nations shall come to you. Wealth should flow into you. You will shine as my people. As Jerusalem's being ransacked and pillaged, Isaiah comes forth with this vision, this glorious vision of a great city on a hill, a vision, a hope, a prayer. And the Israelites never build it. The Puritans don't build it. Neither does Ronald Reagan or any other president who quoted Ronald Reagan or otherwise quoted these verses. Only God can build this city. And only in God's time, in a day to come, not a day that is. The city upon the hill is something that's out there. A hope, a dream, a vision, a promise. I mean, that's the reason why Bill Clinton could come after Ronald Reagan and basically say, I can give you the city that he couldn't give you. Clinton couldn't deliver either. And Jesus never even tries to build a city. This is the amazing thing about Jesus. Jesus never tries to build this city. He tells his disciples, you who are filled with my light shall be like a city upon the hill. People will be watching, and they yearn to see me in you. a message to the people who will follow after the disciples, a message to the communities that they will form. Some of them will try to form political communities. Many of them will try to form political communities. But it's really, really hard for political communities to be biblical communities. Spiritual communities, families, individuals, churches, we can try. We can get maybe a little closer, striving to become communities steadfast and unhesitant in reflecting Christ's light. Steadfast and unhesitant in the ongoing work of the gospel and the blessing of the poor and the filling of the hungry, in the forgiving of sins and in the making of peace, in the comforting of those who mourn and the empowerment of the meek, and willing, if and when, and it does and will happen, the light that we shine illuminates things that people would rather not see, so they try to extinguish the light. This is, after all, what happened to Jesus. His light illumined things that others would rather not see, especially the political leadership and establishment, who were not a city on a hill or a light to the nation, that they tried to extinguish the light. So these communities of light can easily become communities of persecution. And blessed are those who will be persecuted. And it comes down not to political messages on ships or from Oval Offices or convention stages, but to those of us who faithfully try to follow Christ. And that includes, by the way, the Puritans. I don't want to diss them too much. They were out on a holy experiment. They were fervently trying to follow Christ. They fail miserably, but they were fervently trying to follow Christ. We are the light of the world. If we pull our light out from under the bushel, if we place it on that lampstand, let it give light to the house, it will not be hid. And in it, we get a glimpse, just a glimpse, but still a glimpse of that great city God hopes to build, but we keep tearing down.